Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to your essay writing and presentation skills class. Today we are to begin with our lecture number 20th in which we are going to thoroughly discuss the literature essay. To give you a good news, this essay type is going to be the last essay type that we are going to discuss and that we are going to practice during our essay writing skills. So to begin with, let's quickly recap that what we have done in our previous lectures so far. We discussed thoroughly what usually or what do you call an expository essay. Remember, we said that an expository essay is a kind of an essay which revolves around two major things. The first thing is explaining and the other one is that how it is. So these two things are going to be the main focus of once you are trying to expose something, any personal experience of yours or any event or any incident in front of the audience. We have also learned in the previous lecture about the expository essay that what are the key words that show it is an expository essay. That one I have already told you. The words are explain and how it is. Then we have discussed the structure of expository writing, any expository prompt that you try to write or any exposition that you have picked up to write down. To do so, you are supposed to stick to all those classical conventions of writing essays because for making every essay a formal one, you are supposed to stick to introducing one introduction, then you are supposed to provide the supporting details. Remember, particularly talking about the expository essay, you are supposed to write down and you are supposed to insert those details, those evidences which are factual and which provide you with the factual information for the reader. So in this way you can write down one good expository essay for your audience. Now we also discussed one brainstorming technique of PACO. P stands for purpose, A stands for audience, C stands for the content, and O stands for the organization of the content and the organization of the evidences and the organizations of thoughts that is there in your essay. So this is what we had been discussing in the previous lecture about expository essay, that how to write one exposition. Then we also discussed some of the steps for writing down the expository essay. Then we also discussed thoroughly, as we in every lecture we talk about different key points to be considered while writing one good exposition, and then there are some do's and don'ts, and then there are some common mistakes which can be avoided to make your exposition look good and acceptable and appealing for your audience logic. In the end, we ended up our previous lecture by discussing one example which was related to the influences of culture on the society. So this is how we have thoroughly discussed that how you can make and how you can create one good exposition for your audience. So to begin with, today we are to discuss one last type of essay, that is literature essay. First of all, we will look into the definition of the literature essay and how do you define literature essay for your audience. So the first thing that we are going to focus on is that what is literature essay. The essay dealing with a piece of writing, any piece of writing, any piece of fiction that can be addressed while writing a good literature essay, that is a novel, a short story or an article, whatever you want to pick up for any piece of fiction or non-fiction that you want to pick up for writing down one literature essay. To do so, you are supposed to work on some major points. You are not going to particularly talk about the whole novel, or you are not going to particularly talk about the whole play. You are going to pick up only one chunk of it to see that how successfully you can write one essay on, because as we have discussed that every essay carries a limit and every essay focuses on one particular length that can be carried out or that can deliver your point to the audience. So remember, we were also discussing that how you can write a 5-paragraph essay beginning with the introduction, then 3 main body parts which provide you with the supporting details that are being elaborated in your introduction, thesis statement, and then your conclusion in the end, which is is interrelated to your topic sentence, and that provide information to the audience clearly. So this is how you write 5-paragraph essay that should not be very lengthy to make your audience bored and kind of tired of with whatever you are writing. So there should not be so much of the details. Your details can be elaborated and your details can be defined, but in a very concise and clear way. We have also discussed this element of clarity and conciseness in our essays, as to make sure that how you can work on one good essay type and how you can produce one good essay material. Now we coming back to your literature essay, as I said that essay dealing with a piece of writing, any piece of writing. For example, if you pick up any novel, you would specifically pick up one element of the novel to be worked on. Like for example, either you work on the plot, either you work on the settings, either you work on only one basic character who is the protagonist or antagonist or something like that. So this is how you pick up one particular element of any novel, any poem, any short story, any article, any report, to make sure that you are going to write one essay on it thoroughly. Now literature essay most commonly presupposes some kind of analysis. So this analysis is going to be your personal analysis of any piece of literature or any work of art that you want to discuss in your paper. Now that very piece of art that you are discussing in your paper should carry those elements which make your essay evidentiary. Now in other words, you can say that you are going to quote from the text to make sure that all the information that you are providing, you are not talking in the air, or you are not taking your, or you are not diverging the attention of your reader towards something else. So your literature essay should focus on the content that is written in any piece of literature that you have picked up for analysis. So focus on these things, and this is how we define one literature essay, that it is or it presupposes some kind of analysis of any piece of literature. That can be a novel, that can be a short story, that can be a poem, that can be any article, that can be any report. So any fiction or non-fiction element that is there can be written down as one literature essay. Now again coming back to the definition of literature essay, literature essay is an essay that shows writer's understanding of author's point of view and ability to explain it in a bright way. Now in other words, if you try to elaborate what we have discussed in the previous slide, literature essay focuses on elaborating or showing writer's understanding of author's point of view and the ability to explain it in a bright way. Now your main focus is to understand the author's point of view, the author of the novel, the poet of the poem, the author of the writer of the drama or a play, the writer of any essay like Bernard Russell and other famous and renowned people like him. So your focus should be that what exactly the author, the genuine author of any piece of literature wants to depict in his essay, and your focus would be to develop your understanding of what writer has to say. Now whatever writer has said in his piece of literature, you are supposed to rewrite his point of view in your own words in a very bright way. Means that you are supposed to mingle your ideas with the with that one of the original ideas of the author. So your literature essay would be then an analysis that is a combination of your point of view as well as the original point of view of that is coming from the author of any piece of literature that you have picked up for writing down one good literature essay on. So I hope that you have understood the that how do we define literature essay. Now moving on to the next slide, we will talk about different parts of literature essay, that how you can categorize or how you can divide your essay into different parts. Now first of all, your like every essay you have your introduction. Now your introduction part poses a question and presents the thesis statement. Like every other kind of essay, your introduction focuses on presenting the main argument or the main question or the main thought of whatever you are going to write in the supporting details. So that will basically, in other words, will provide and will focus on the thesis statement of your essay, while the conclusion summarizes it. As we have already have been discussing earlier, that these two of them, your introduction and your conclusion, both of them, they are interrelated to one another in a way that you are going to work on them from your point of view, and you are going to link both of them for the writers, for the readers' understanding. So yes, this introduction and this conclusion, both of them, they work on your thesis statement that is presented in your introduction, and that is proved or summarized in your conclusion. So both of them, they are interrelated and they are well connected to each other. Now it is possible to emphasize why the topic of literature review is important in conclusion, keeping the style of an essay formal. So your main goal should be to keep the essay style, literature essay style formal, as to make sure that you are not going to digress from your main thesis statement, because that is a serious question that you are going to ponder on while you pick up any piece of literature to write any work on or any text on. So this text combination is basically going to be your literature literature essay that you are going to basically produce one today. So let's see the next slide and try to see that what are we supposed to do while we intend to write one good literature essay. So the first thing that you are supposed to keep in mind, and the first thing that we usually do while writing down one literature essay, is to begin with the introduction. Now while you start writing your introduction, make sure that you are brief. Your introduction should be a brief one. In other words, you are going to make sure that you are going to elaborate and define your topic statement in such a way that is going to be helpful and beneficial for your audience to understand that what are the what your supporting details will talk about, and then what your essay will lead to. Now your introduction should give some suggestion of the direction you intend to take in your essay. Now whatever question or whatever thesis statement that you have drawn for your essay would come in the introduction, that would guide the reader towards what direction you are going in and what exactly you want to achieve after writing this essay. Indicate the aspects of the work you intend to deal with. So you are going to indicate all those aspects of book, all those elements that you want to focus on while writing one good literature essay. So your introduction should be a brief one that should clearly define in a very precise way. So see, there are two things that are supposed to be kept in mind while writing one good introduction. The first one is for being precise, that is focuses on the conciseness, and the second thing is to make it clear for the understanding of your audience, that is to make or write your arguments with clarity. So whatever suggestions you are giving, your thesis statement should clarify clarify in front of the audience that what direction you would go in. We should underline this word also, because you are taking your audience somewhere around, and you are going to give them a round of some particular place. So you are going to make sure that you are not going to digress from your basic point. And the second thing that you are supposed to keep in mind is to make it very, very brief, and to make it very, very short, terse and concise, to be read quickly by your audience. So that was the first thing that you are supposed to keep in mind while writing one good, before you plan for writing one literature essay. Once that you have picked up any topic for writing down one good literature essay, you can decide on, you can ponder on how to write the introduction essay by setting down the topic statement for your literature essay. The second thing that you are supposed to keep in mind is paraphrasing. Now paragraphing is something that we are supposed to do in every kind of essay or every type of essay that we pick up to write on. Now in your plan you should identify very clearly around 6 distinct points you intend to make and the specific parts of the text that you intend to examine in some detail. Now there is something specific about picking up the elements for any piece of literature that you want to work on. So this specificness of any piece of literature has to do with the elements or whatever you intend to examine in some detail are supposed to be kept in mind while you intend to write down one good literature essay. So as I said, that it should revolve around the 6 distinct points. It means that you are supposed to divide your literature essay by providing the 6 different supporting details being presented in different paragraphs. So there should be at least 6 basic arguments to be discussed in your literature essay when you want to pick up one for writing down one good essay on. When writing your essay, you should devote 1 or 2 paragraphs to each point. Try to make smooth links between paragraphs. Now, cohesion is again important. You are going to devote 1 or 2 paragraphs to each point. If you feel that if you are crossing the that actual limit of the paragraph, you should make sure that in that very limit of the paragraph you are unable to deliver your argument or present your argument in front of the reader. You must make sure that you are going to divide your major paragraph into the sub paragraph as to see that how well you can work to make your audience understand that what points you want to discuss with them throughout your literature essay. So first thing was introduction that we have discussed, that how are you supposed to prepare for the introduction or write down the introduction for your literature essay. The second thing that you are supposed to remember is to decide on the paragraphing. Maybe you can pick up 6 distinct points on you can work on, and maybe you can write down 1 or 2 paragraphs for each of the point that you have discussed in or you want to, or you have elaborated in your outline or during your pre-writing technique to be elaborated in your essay thoroughly once you decide to write down your draft number 1. So moving on to the third point, you must provide the evidence. Now this evidence is very important while we talk about any literature essay, because you provide evidence from the literature or you quote it from the literature to support that element that you have picked up to write your analysis on. Now when you make a point, you must prove it. So once you deliver your understanding that you have understood the writer's point of view, and then you try to give your own analysis on how writer has tried to explain it, you must make sure that you must prove it. How do you prove it? You prove it with the evidence that you are supposed to present in front of the audience, while keeping in mind the this importance of using it. So you are supposed to prove your argument by providing the evidence. For example, just as a lawyer, as you can very well see on the slide as well, in court must produce evidence to support his case, so you must produce evidence to prove the comments you make about. So you just like the lawyer in the court, he tries to prove his argument or prove his evidence to support his case, and he provides with the factual information and evidences. In the light of evidences, he tries to prove that his candidate has not committed a murder, has not done this murder or something like that. So in the light of those evidences, he tried to prove his argument. Just as the case with writing down one good literature essay, that the topic statement that you have picked or the question that you have picked to be answered while writing one literature essay should be proved thoroughly by providing the evidences throughout your essay. Now your comments or your evidences can be related to characters, can be related to the relationships, themes, styles, and so on and so forth. When you make a point, refer to the set text. So whenever you are going to make any point, you are going to prove it by referring back to the text. That is only major source for providing or for proving whatever you are saying is right. Give an example to support what you say. Better still, use a quote. So this quote is real important when you intend to write down one good literature essay. Now that we have talked about the introduction, and we have also talked about the paragraphing, and then we have also talked about the providing the evidences in your literature essay. Now let's move on to how do you provide quotes. As we said that while providing evidence, the best idea is that you provide as it is quotes from the that piece of literature that you have picked up for the analysis. Now remember to lay out quotes correctly. Start a line and intend like this. Now this is one graph that you can very well see if you intend to write down one quote in your text. Now this is the text of your essay. The text that is in your own words that you are intending to write. This is the quote being taken from the piece of literature on which you are working, any element on you are working. Now see, there are these parentheses and these inverted commas which reveal that this is or this text has been taken from or adopted from somewhere, and here you write down the page number. Maybe the quote has been taken from page number 37 of the particular text. So this is how you write down the quote of any piece of literature if you want to give proper evidence from the text. And then you start again, you start writing your text that is in your the elaboration of the quote in your own words. And these three things they are strongly tied up together, and there is coherence in them. Through the cohesive words which you can use while writing one good literature essay. Now my pen is not working, and let me see that how to make it work for you. Alright, I've written it down. So coherence and cohesion are two things that you are supposed to remember while you quote from the text, and try to see that the things that you have said mingle with and they are tied up with, and they actually are related with the quote that you are mentioning in your text, in your literature essay. Now make sure that if there is no connection, your quote that you are quoting from the text will look irrelevant to the audience, as well as they will not be appealed with what you have to say, and the things that you are saying will not appeal to their logic. So you are supposed to keep in mind that while writing one good literature essay, whatever you are quoting should be provided with the evidence and should be provided with the proof that you can provide from the text. Remember to introduce the quote within a colon and use quotation marks, as I have told you already. It is important to lay out quotes correctly because it shows you a professional, you are professional about what you are doing. So this, if you are successful to write down the related quotes and you are successful to mingle them and merge them in your essay, it shows that you are one good professional writer. Keep them short, no more than 3 or 4 lines each. Now there is another thumb rule to remember while you are quoting from the text, that your quotes should not be more than 2 to 3 lines, because if you are quoting larger texts, that is not going to convey the meaning to your particular audience whom you want to target to. So moving on to the next slide, and let's see that what is the next thing that you are supposed to keep in mind while writing one literature essay. Now this next thing is the selection. Now how do you select things from the text to retell or restate the story that has been already told by the original author of any novel, any drama, any poem, any article, or and so on and so forth. So avoid the trap of just retelling the story. The important thing is to be selective in the way you use the text. Only refer to those parts of the book that help you answer the question. Now which question you are talking about? about, the question in your thesis statement should be elaborated thoroughly as to see that how you can relate evidences and how you can select the kind of text that has been written by the original author in your essay. So this is how you can write down, or you can select for the relevant material to be added and to be inserted in your literature essay. Now the next thing that you are supposed to remember is to answer the question. Now it sounds obvious, but it's so easy to forget the question and go off at the digression. Now sometimes the common mistake the writers usually make is to digress from their point of view, from the question that they have mentioned and they really want to work on. In other words, they forget the direction where they want to actually go and where they what exactly they want to achieve after writing that particular kind of essay. So it sounds obvious, but it's so easy to forget the question. Of course, if we start thinking of it in our minds, we can make it sure that sometimes it is obvious that we cannot forget what exactly we are writing about, but once you sit down to write, it happens that you forget about those things which you were supposed to insert and which you were supposed to answer while writing, and you start talking about and writing about other stuff and other things. When you have finished the paragraph, read it through and ask yourself that how does this contribute to the answering the question. Now your major question should be answered in every paragraph that you are trying to answer. So whenever you are going to write any new paragraph that is in support of your introduction main thesis statement or your question statement, try to make sure and try to answer yourself with how this paragraph or how does this paragraph contribute to the answering of your question or answering of your thesis statement. If it doesn't, change it so that it does address the question directly. So in this way, once you are going to reread your paragraph to see that how, and asking yourself that how they are related to your main thesis statement, you can write down one good paragraph and then paragraphs and then so on and on, to make sure that all of them they prove to or they support your main thesis statement. If you are unable or if you are unsuccessful in elaborating or in answering your question that how your paragraph is related to or how your paragraph actually supports your or answers your question, then you are unsuccessful, and you should try to rewrite your paragraph trying to prove the topic statement that you have mentioned in every paragraph that you are writing. So this is another technique of writing down the literature essay. Now moving on to the writing of the conclusion. So far we are done with writing the introduction, writing the thesis statement, then writing down different paragraphs, and then providing the evidences, the quotes, answering the questions, and then text selection from the whole drama, novel, or any piece of text that you have selected for analysis for writing down one literature essay. Another thing that you are supposed to keep in mind, that at the end you write down the conclusion. Like for every essay there is a conclusion, so for literature essay there is also be a conclusion. You write this conclusion in the end, and at the end try to all the threads of your various points together. So as many points that you were discussing in your thesis statement and then your supporting paragraphs, try to make sure that all of them they are connected and they are tied up together, to see that, for example, if this is your thesis statement, and let me write it down for you so that you can understand that what exactly I am talking about. And these are all your supporting arguments. We said that there should be at least 6 evidences or 6 major points or 6 distinct points related to the thesis statement that should be worked on. So you have produces these 6 points with the evidences and with the help of the quotes that you can write down one good paragraph with. So all of them, these are your paragraphs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, presenting 6 distinct ideas or 6 different ideas which are tied up together. I don't know what is the all right. distinct ideas which are tied up together to your thesis statement. Now once you decide to write down your conclusion, try to make sure that your conclusion is going to attach or is going to link to all the ties that are there in your topic statement. So in this way this part of your paragraph or this part of your essay which answers the your thesis statement, now this conclusion is basically based on these distinct points, that's the combination of these distinct points, as well as it refers back to your thesis statement that we have composed in our introduction. So your conclusion basically sums up or basically analyzes in 1 or 2 lines that how successful were you in answering or improving your question of your that was being presented in your introduction. So this is how you are supposed to write down your conclusion. Now once that we are done with writing your whole literature essay, there are a few more things that you are supposed to see while writing one good literature essay. The first thing that you are supposed to remember while writing one good literature essay is your style that you are supposed to focus on. Now this style of writing should be kept in mind once you decide on writing one formal kind of essay, that is literature essay. Now since we are again and again stressing on the point that your literature essay is supposed to be kept formal, so try to avoid making it chatty or conversational. If you imagine you are a lawyer in court trying to prove your point of view about a book, that might help you to set the right tone. Now your tone should be the right one as you see a lawyer standing in the court and trying to prove his case through evidences. If you stand on the same position and try to see that how you can produce one good literature essay by providing the strong evidences while keeping your tone formal and eye-catching for the others. So in this way you can write down with a very good style, you can write down one good literature essay. Next thing that you are supposed to remember is to be creative. Now remember, you don't have to agree with other people's points of view about literature. If your ideas are original or different, as long as you develop them clearly, use evidence intelligently and argue persuasively, your point will be respected. Now you are not going to depend on the ideas being represented by others, and you are not going to rely on the information that is being introduced by the others. Try to be creative and try to make your argument clear and try to make your analysis clear for the others and try to be unique. Now how do you do that? You can do that if you make or if you stick to the clarity of your literature essay, if you try to use evidences intelligently and you try to argue persuasively. Only in this way you can or any other person can respect your argument or your analysis that you are presenting in your literature essay. We want literature to touch you personally, and it will often affect different people in different ways. So you are supposed to be creative as to touch down the emotion or of your reader and to make them see that how much you can persuade them by providing your genuine ideas in a very clear and very concise way. Now there is a checklist that you are supposed to keep in mind and that you can paste on your working station or your study table before writing down one literature essay, or you can stick to all these points to make sure that you have done or you have fulfilled all the requirements for writing one good literature essay. Now put the full title of the question and date at the top. Now your title and your question should come on the top of your paper. You have written the clear paragraphs, you have produced evidence to prove all your points, you have used at least 5 quotes. Now see, the minimum number of the quotes that you can use in your literature essay is 5, and you have answered the question that was there in your introduction and your thesis statement, and you have helped yourself write down and answer that question in your conclusion clearly. So these are a few things that you are supposed to keep in mind. This is a checklist that you can keep in mind while writing one good literature essay. Now there are some types of literature essays that can be used or that can be of a good example for you once you plan on writing down one good literature essay. Basically, literature essay revolves around those pieces of literature which are the renowned ones and which are being the most famous ones in their times. Now you can write down novel essays based on the different elements that you want to pick on. Now once that you have decided to work on the novel essay, you can either work on theme, you can either work on plot, setting, characters, style, can be the fair divisions for any essay. So there are different elements in one essay. You can not talk about different elements at a time, so you are supposed to pick up one major element. Either you talk about the setting, you talk about the theme, you talk about the character, you talk about the style, the language style that the writer has used in his drama, novel, or any other piece of literature that you have picked up for the analysis. So keep in mind that these are the fair choices for picking out any element to be written down one good literature essay on. So order and emphasis will depend on your bias of questions. So your question is very important once you start, or once you think of planning, or once you plan to write down one good literature essay. If the question is about theme, talk about it in the introduction, then discuss one per paragraph, how the other aspects contribute to it, and conclude by talking about the success or otherwise of the author in communicating his or her theme. So you are going to thoroughly discuss your theme in your introduction paragraph. Make sure that you write down the question statement in your introduction, and related to that question you are going to write down each paragraph based on the evidences. Now once you have written down the paragraph, make sure that you try to reread your paragraph as to answer your question, that how this paragraph answers or helps you answer your main question that has been represented in your introduction. So if every paragraph of yours is successful in answering the question, only then you can write a very good literature essay. So this is how you connect your thoughts to one particular point, revolving around one element or one chunk of literature aspect that you have picked up for writing down an analysis on. Now moving on to the next slide, let's see the second type of the literature essay, that is drama essay. Now again, drama essay has got some elements that can be focused on. Again, theme, plot, setting, characters, and instead of picking up the style, you can talk about the techniques of writing the drama. Now a drama can have a language style as well as different techniques can be used for writing down one drama. So these are some fair options for writing down any drama essay. If the question is about technique, talk about how it affects the others one per paragraph. So whatever technique the writer has used in his drama, you are supposed to comment on that in every paragraph while they answer your main question. Now moving on to the next slide, that talks about another interesting type of essay, that is poetry essay, which basically focuses on your theme, your style, and the technique. Now which includes such aspects of alliteration, then assonance, versification, rhyme, rhythm where appropriate. So this is how you can talk about the technique of writing down one poetry essay, and you can talk about these different techniques that can be used in any literature essay or any variety of literature poetry essay that is there. Now let's read from the slide carefully and try to see what writer has to say here and what writer has to comment here, and how to stick to writing down one good literature essay. The titles of the plays, novels, magazines, newspapers, journals, things that can now moving on to the next slide, let's see that what things that you are supposed to keep in mind while writing any literature essay, like essay, any drama essay, any poetry essay, any novel essay, and so on and so forth. So let's try to see that what are the things that you can keep in mind while writing their titles. So while writing the titles of plays, novels, magazines, newspapers, and journals, things that can stand by themselves are sometimes underlined or they are italicized. So these titles of any novel, any drama, any play, any journal, any newspaper can stand on their own, and they can be differentiated from the other text in a way that they can be written in italicized forms or they can be underlined. If you are using a word processor or you have a fancy typewriter, use italics, but do not use both underlines and italics at the same time. Some instructors have adopted rules about using italics that go back to a time when italics on a word processor could be hard to read, so you should ask your instructor if you can use italics. Underlines are always correct, so you don't have to worry about the underlines. Otherwise italics can not be or they are sometimes not preferred by your tutor or your teacher. So try to make sure that before using these italics you ask your teacher that whether you can use them in your essay writing or not. The titles of the poems, short stories, and articles, things that do not generally stand by themselves, require quotation marks. So the titles which are the longer ones, which can stand on their own, they can be written in they can be either underlined or they can be written in italics. However, the titles of poems like fears and the very short ones which can merge within the text should be written within the inverted commas as to highlight that how are you talking about one particular thing. So that was about some kinds of things that you are supposed to keep in mind while writing the literature essays. Now there are tools of the trade, subjects and verbs that you are supposed to use correctly while writing the literature essay. Now see some examples and let's try to see that how do you do that. Whenever possible, use strong subjects and active constructions rather than weak verbal nouns and abstractions and weak passives or linking verbs. Like for example, instead of Petruchio, denial of Kate or of basic necessities would seem cruel and harsh. Now instead of writing this one, you should try this one out. By denying Kate the basic necessities of life, Petruchio appears cruel and harsh, but he says that he is just putting on an act. So that is a simple way of saying instead of merging down the subject and verbs together. Don't forget that words and even phrases can serve as strong sentence subjects. Petruchio's I'll buckler thee against a million injects an unexpectedly chivalric note, especially since it follows hard on the heels of his seemingly ungentlemanly behavior. Now see, this is kind of conveying the different kinds of the phrases like injects an unexpectedly chivalric note and seemingly ungentlemanly behavior on the heels of, and these kind of short phrases can stand on their own, then they can lengthen your strength of the paragraph of your strengthen the length of your text, and they can serve as strong sentence subject. And remember, use regular quotation marks unless you are quoting material that contains a quotation itself. So you are supposed to not forget mention down the quotation marks if you are quoting down anything from the text. Now there are some topics that you can work, or you can on which you can write on while writing or while picking up for writing one good literature essay. Now literature essay topics help you to narrow down on the central idea or detail of anything. It is important to choose the essay topics you are interested in. Below are the examples of good literature essay topics. The first one is, let's start with the first one. Why does Hamlet delay taking revenge on Claudius? Now if you have read the I hope that you have read Hamlet in your drama 1, and you would have seen that how does Hamlet delay taking revenge on Claudius. Now this is one particular element being taken from the drama presented by Shakespeare, that why Hamlet kept on delaying taking his revenge on Claudius. The characters of Hamlet and Horatio. Why did Ophelia commit a suicide? Now these things, these three things, they are particularly related to Hamlet. Now see that from how many elements and from how many angles you can talk about one particular thing. The rules of marriage in 14th century, the tragic love of Romeo and Juliet, Pushkin in the Russian literature, the poetry that has a special meaning for you, and so on and so forth. So this is how you can pick up any particular topic to write down once you decide on writing down one good literature essay. So that was a list of topics on which you can write one good literature essay. Now moving on to the next slide, as you can see that we are going to take one example of Hamlet, the character of Hamlet in his drama Hamlet, and we are going to see one good example of how the writer presents the character of Hamlet from the particular point of view. Now let's click on the hyperlink, and now let's try to read out this text that has been taken, that was written by William Hazlitt, who has talked about different characters of Shakespeare plays, and this series of his essays was published in 1817, and in this particular chapter he talks about, that was basically the chapter number 1 of his essay, and in this essay he particularly talks about the character of Hamlet in Shakespeare's drama Hamlet. Now let's start reading that, and let's now try to see that how he has tried to develop the understanding of the reader towards the character of Hamlet in his essay. Now I will read from the text and you have to listen to me carefully. This is that Hamlet the Dane, whom we read of in our youth, and whom we maybe said almost remember in our after years. Now if you see this, these numbers written in the parentheses, these are basically the page numbers from where from where the writer is quoting from the text. Now this is that Hamlet the Dane, that one he is taken from the text, and or after years. Now your quotation is to come after you mention the page numbers in your parenthesis. He who made that famous soliloquy on life. Now this is how he tries to explain the character of the Hamlet, who gave the advice to the players, who thought this goodly frame the earth a trial, and this brave air hanging firmament, and the ear this majestical roof fretted with golden fire. Now see how he is trying to explain the character of Hamlet. Now let's start reading from here. The friend of Horatio, the lover of Ophelia, he that mad and sent to England, the slow avenger of his father's death, who lived at the court of Horvendelus 500 years before we were born, but all whose thoughts we seem to know as well as we do our own, because we have read them in Shakespeare. So this is how the writer tries to explain the character of Hamlet in his first paragraph, and this is how he explains that what exactly he is going to talk about. He is particularly going to talk about the Hamlet's character throughout his essay. Hamlet is a name, his speeches and sayings, but the idle coinage of poet's brain. What then are they not real? They are as real as our own thoughts, their reality in their reader's mind. It is we who are Hamlet. This play has a prophetic truth which is above that of the history. Now see these kind of things that the writer uses. Now we are to focus on some of the inverted commas and some of the quotations that the writer uses from within the text. Now see and try to read them. Whoever has borne about with him the clouded brow of reflection and thought himself too much eyed sun. Now see, he is quoting from the text and he is trying to tell you that how he is supporting his arguments from the text. Now let's move on and let me show you something that I have picked up to show you while he tries to define the character of Hamlet. Now here you go, the text that I have selected for you people to see that how the writer actually states the character of Hamlet and how he explains his soliloquy of to be or not to be. Now there are so many texts, as you can see, this one written here and the one that was written above that. Now let's try to read that how he merges his previous paragraph with the next one in between the texts. Now particularly reading from the lines that have been taken from the text, let's try to read from the texts that are related and that particularly talk about the two or they try to link the text together. Now reading from here, he is the prince of philosophical speculators, and because he cannot have the revenge perfect according to most refined idea his wish can form, he declines it altogether. So he scruples to trust the suggestion of the ghost, contrives the scene of the play to have surer proof of his uncle's guilt, and then rests satisfied with the confirmation of his suspicions and the success of experiment. Instead of acting upon it, yet he is sensible of his own weakness, taxes himself with it, and tries to reason himself out of it. Now let's read from the text how Shakespeare has presented it. We will begin from here. How all occasions do inform against me and spur my dull revenge. What is a man, if his chief good and market of his time be but to sleep and feed, a beast no more? Sure, he that made us with such a large discourse, looking before and after, gave us not that capability and godlike reason to first in us usher now, whether it be bestyle oblivion or some craven sculpture of thinking too precisely o' the event, a thought which quartered hath but one part wisdom and ever three parts covered, I don't know. Sith I have cause and will and strengthen and means to doth examples gross as earth exhort me. The major portion is written in the Old English that cannot be understandable by the reader, but the writer has tried to explain that in the next paragraph, where the Hamlet soliloquy ends by saying, to hide the slain, oh from the time forth, my thoughts be bloody or nothing worth. Now still he does nothing, and this very speculation of his own infirmity only affords him another occasion of indulging it. Now he was unable to murder Claudius, the one person who married his mother, Hamlet's mother. He wanted to kill that person and take his life, and now he was unable to do that because of some reasons, and this soliloquy of Hamlet is related to the same reference. So see how the writer picks up from the text to support his arguments and to support his points. Now moving on to the end of the essay, he's conducted. Now let's start reading from here. I have highlighted it for you so that you can see that. He could neither marry Ophelia nor wound her mind by explaining the cause of his alienation, which he durst hardly trust himself to think of. It would have taken him years to have come to direct explanation on the point in the harassed state of his mind. He could not have done much otherwise than he did. His conduct does not contradict what he says when he sees her funeral. Now he says, I loved Ophelia 40,000 brothers could not with all their quantity of love make up my sum. Now nothing can be more affecting or beautiful than Queen's apostrophe to Ophelia on throwing flowers in the grave. Sweets to the sweet farewell, scattering flowers. I hope thou shouldn't have been my Hamlet's wife. I thought thy bride to have checked sweet maid, and not to have stew thy grave. Now this is how the writer tries to quote from the text that how this mourner of or the death of Ophelia was mourned by Hamlet and his mother. Shakespeare was thoroughly a master of mixed motives of human character, and he here shows us the queen who was the criminal in some respect, not without sensibility and affection in their relations. Now let's try to read the end of the essay, that how a writer writes down the closing paragraph. We do not like to see our authors play acted, and least of all Hamlet. There is no play that suffers so much in being transferred to the stage. Hamlet himself seems hardly capable of being acted. Mr. Campbell unavoidably fails in the character from a want of ease and variety. The character of Hamlet is man in armor, with a determined inventory of purpose, in an undeviating straight line, which is as remote for the natural grace and refined susceptibility of the character as the sharp angles and abrupt starts which Mr. Kean introduces into part. Mr. Kean's Hamlet is as much too splenetic and rash as Mr. Campbell's is too deliberate and formal. His manner is too strong and pointed. He throws a severity approaching governance into common observations and answers. There is nothing of this in Hamlet. He is, as it were, wrapped up with his reflections and only thinks aloud. There should therefore be no attempt to impress what he says upon others by studied exaggeration of emphasis or manner, no taking at his hearers. There should be as much of the gentleman and scholar as possible infused into the part, and a little of the actor. A pensive air of sadness should sit reluctantly upon his brow, but no appearance of fixed and sullen gloom. He is full of weakness and melancholy, but there is no harshness in his nature. He is most amiable of mean misanthropes. So this is how the writer ends up his essay by, as you can see that how the writer has tried to compare two different characters of Mr. Campbell with the Hamlet, yet he proves that the Hamlet was the unique one. There was no harshness in his character, but yet he was the most amiable of the misanthropes who was actually suffering from the pain inside him, and see how beautifully the writer has explained it well. Now coming back to our second example, that is Chaucer's how Chaucer transformed every genre he used. Now let's quickly see that how the writer has written that. The writer basically starts talking from the Canterbury Tales and starts saying that it is an undoubtedly richly textured work that draws in and combines many different elements together. So starting up with this line, he starts talking about that how Chaucer has or how this Chaucer transformed every genre he used. Till the end he keeps on talking, and there are so many paragraphs that he kept talking while writing down this essay. Let's only read the last paragraph in which the author has tried to tell that how Chaucer has transformed every of his work into some genre of into some different genre. Adhering to convention then is illustrated as a negative approach, one which resulted in death without allowing for the further possibilities of choice that allow in the story. This is highly appropriate with a tale which contradicts the values of the earlier romance. In this sense, Chaucer is not so much transforming every genre he had, but turning them into themselves, blending, morphing and deconstructing them until they resist all meaning in order to create a work on a greater scale which truly supersedes the boundary of such simple categorization. So see, the writer denies the fact that the Chaucer has transformed every work that he has used. He has taken one particular example of the Canterbury Tales, and he tries to prove and he tries to disprove that the Chaucer has done or transformed every genre of writing that he has made. He is of a solid opinion that he has somewhat to create his work on the greater scale. He has tried to use these simple categorizations of his work and thus made his essay look different. So that was your example number 2. You can writing down one literature essay is the basic thing that you are supposed to do in your major course, or that is going to be the target of your course. Now, to write down one good literature essay, you are supposed to keep in mind all those points that we have discussed in our literature essay. Remember that you are going to brighten the the genuine writer's point of view in your essay and try to make it unique and different from the work of the original writer. Today we have discussed about the last type of literature, the last type of essay, that is known as literature essay. We have also seen the different parts of literature essay, that how introduction, body parts and the paragraphs should look like. Then we have thoroughly discussed that how the literature essay looks like and how you can produce one literature essay. Then we have also stick to the checklist for writing your essay. We have discussed some types of literature essays, and we have also discussed on what kind of topics you can pick for writing down one good literature essay. We have discussed one example of Hamlet, and then another example that how Chaucer transformed every work he used, and this brings us to the end of today's lecture. Here is a list of references from where the information was being downloaded. You can surf on internet to see different examples of literature essay, as we hadn't had much time to discuss them in detail. Mostly literature is written in Old English that was presented in the old times of Shakespeare. So we cannot guarantee the classics to be explained in one class, because maybe you have to take one basic course for writing down for reading down one piece of literature. But you can, if you have read a piece of literature that has appealed to you, you can pick up one to write down one good literature essay on. So with that, I wish you a very good luck for your essay writing skills, since we are done with all our types of essays and how you are supposed to attempt essays in your while you select one topic to do so. In the next class, I'll see you again with a very good topic of exams that you are supposed to keep in mind while you think of attempting all the essays in your exam. So I'll give you some tips that how you're supposed to attempt essays in your exam. You are not to worry, because sometimes you worry because essay is a very lengthy thing to do, and it is very time taking. But I hope that you are, once I had been telling you about each essay type, you have learned how to use your skills to create one within a very short time. So now that you have practiced, we will see that how you can divide your time in the exam, and you can decide to write down your essay out of 3 in 1 hour once you are writing down in your exam. So with that, I wish you a very happy day and a very happy life ahead, and I'll see you in the next class. After that, we will start our presentation skills thoroughly. So with that, I say you a very happy day and a goodbye.